In the heart of the town stood the prestigious Ibala University. Its halls were filled with knowledge, but under the shadow stood one man who twisted the idea of education into something cruel and oppressive. Professor Olamide, a man of brilliant intellect, had once been revered for his depth of knowledge, but the tragic death of his wife, Adebisi, had changed him. Since her passing, he became a man consumed by grief, bitterness, and anger. He turned into a tyrant, ruling his classroom with iron fist and punishing his students for his own sorrow. He believed that his suffering gave him the right to control the lives of the students who sought to learn from him. The students feared him, and for good reason. No one left his class without being scared, either emotionally or academically. One of the most notorious rules in Professor Olamide's classroom was the late arrival rule. Anyone who dared to enter his lecture hall even a second late was immediately marked as a failure. No excuses were allowed, whether it was a medical emergency or a family crisis. None of it mattered. If you were late, you failed. It was that simple. But there was no more to Olamide's tyranny. He refused to allow his students any chance of redemption. He would often leave them stranded outside his class, hoping for a miracle. If you arrived late, you had to wait outside in the rain until he decided to let you in. And even then, there was no guarantee you would pass. Olamide had become more than just a lecturer. He was the embodiment of frustration. The students, despite their best efforts, could never seem to meet his impossible standards. No matter how much they studied, Olamide found a way to make them fail. His exams were cruel, and his lectures were more about his personal anguish than teaching. Every day, his students would wait in the hallway, praying they would not get caught outside when Olamide arrived. One such day, as the rain poured down relentlessly, a group of students stood under the narrow shelter outside Olamide's lecture hall, drenched to the bone. They had arrived early, but the professor was known to start his lectures early. With no room for tardiness, once the clock struck, they were all allowed to enter. One by one, they greeted him. But Olamide's response was always the same. "You think I will give you marks for greeting me?" he asked. His eyes flicked over them, never once showing a hint of warmth. He had grown accustomed to their desperation. The students, who had once looked up to him, now only saw a man who enjoyed tormenting them. Whispers circulated through the halls about his cruelty. They had begun to call him the weapon fashioned against students, a nickname that captured his malicious nature. No one dared say it aloud, but everyone knew it was true. Adamma was different. While most students had resigned themselves to their fate, Adana refused to accept such. She had heard the stories of Olamide's tyranny, but she refused to let him define her. She was smart, determined, and focused on her dreams of becoming a doctor. She would not let one man's grief and cruelty destroy her future. Adama had seen her classmates break under Olamide's weight. Some had given up, accepting their failures, while others had become shells of their former selves, living in fear of the next lecture. But not Adama. She wasn't going to let that man control her life. Her first encounter with Professor Olamide was just the way the others had described. He entered the lecture hall with his usual air of superiority, as if the classroom were his domain. The students immediately fell silent. their eyes fixed on the lecturer, afraid to speak. They had learned long ago that even the slightest misstep could lead to disaster. Adamma, however, was unafraid. She raised her hand during the lecture. This was an act of bravery in Olamide's class. The professor looked at her with anger. If only looks could kill, Adamma would be 10 feet. Yes, Adamma, he asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. I'm having trouble understanding this topic. Could you explain it again? Adamma asked calmly. Olamide's lips curled into a twisted smile. You don't understand? How amusing. You think I'm here to hold your hands? You should have studied harder before coming to class. The other students shrank back, afraid to make eye contact with their professor. But Adamma stood her ground. She was no longer willing to play the victim. She knew that the only way to stand up to him was to refuse to be intimidated. With all due respect, Prof, Adamma began, you are here to teach us, not to humiliate us. But then, the professor said, if you think you can change my methods with your words, you are sorely mistaken. Adamma did not back down. She knew that standing up to Olamide might cost her, but she was willing to take that risk. She had nothing to lose but her future, and she would write for it. As the semester progressed, the tension in Olamide's class grew unbearable. The students knew that the final exams was fast approaching, and they were filled with dread. Many had already accepted that they would fail. Some had even started to withdraw from the course, their dreams crushed by Olamide's cruelty. But Adamma wasn't like other students. She studied relentlessly, spending countless hours pouring her textbooks and notes. She was determined to pass, not just for herself, but for everyone who had been tormented by Olamide's wrath. On the day of the final exams, a tragedy struck. Amina, a quiet student who had always struggled to meet Olamide's expectations, was involved in a horrific car accident on her way to the exam. Her car flipped over and she was left with broken bones and severe injuries. Despite her condition, Amina managed to make her way to campus, hoping to at least try and sit for the exams. When she arrived at the lecture hall, bloodied and bruised, the other students gasped in horror. But it was Olamide's reaction that stunned them all. He looked at Amina with cold indifference. You want to take exam like this? He asked, his voice devoid of sympathy. Amina, shaking in pain, nodded, please, Prof. I don't want to fail. I worked so hard for this. Olamide's eyes narrowed. You've wasted my time, he said dismissively. You will fail, regardless of whether you are here or not. Amina's heart shattered as she turned away, unable to speak. She left the hall, tears streaming down her face. The students were left in stern silence, witnessing the true extent of Olamide's cruelty. Adamma, witnessing the scene, knew she could not let this stand. Something had to be done, and she was going to make sure Olamide knew that no one, not even him, could treat people like that. As the days passed, Adamma's resolve only grew stronger. She began organizing a protest against Olamide's behavior, rallying the other students to take a stand. It wasn't just about passing the exams anymore. It was about fighting back against a system that allowed one man to control their future. One evening, Adamma called a meeting with her classmates. They gathered away from prying eyes of the professor. Adamma spoke to them, her voice steady and confident. We cannot let Olamide continue like this, she said. We are here to learn, not to be tormented. We will fight back together. If we don't, he will break us all." The students agreed and they began to take action. They approached the administration demanding Olamide be removed from his position. They shared stories of his cruelty, including the incident with Amina. The students' voices grew louder, and soon, even the administration could no longer ignore their mounting pressure. But Olamide wasn't going down easy. He knew that his influence at the university was immense. He had allies in high places and he would do whatever it took to maintain his control. He threatened to expose the administration for its financial mismanagement, knowing that they would not afford a scandal. But the students were determined. Adama's leadership inspired them, and they fought back with everything they had. Finally, the administration caved in. They could no longer ignore the injustice that had been allowed to fester under Olamide's rule. Olamide was suspended and a new professor was appointed to take his place. The students celebrated their victory, but they knew that the battle had not been easy. They had stood up against one of the most powerful men in the school, and they had won, and it was all thanks to Adama, the student who had refused to break down. In the aftermath of Olamide's suspension, the university began to heal. The students who had once feared the prof now found themselves free to learn in a supportive and encouraging environment. Adama graduated with honors, and she was hailed as a hero by her peers. Olamide, however, was not so easily defeated. He disappeared from campus, but rumors about his return persisted. Some said he had gone into hiding, while others claimed that he had left the country. The students who stood by Adama knew that they had been part of something important. They fought. And so, the story of Professor Olamide, the weapon fashioned against students, became a legend, a warning to all who sought to use their power to crush the dreams of others. After graduation, Adama stood before the glass door, clutching her brown envelope like a lifeline. She had dreamt of walking into this building, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. Life after school had slapped her with a reality far harsher than any exam Professor Olamide ever set. Her mother was sick, her little brother needed school fees, and jobs harder to find than truth in politics. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and pushed the doors open. The receptionist, a sharp-faced woman with a bright smile, directed her to 12th floor. Adama's heart pounded. With each step in the elevator, she did not need to check the name again. It was burning into her mind like a car. Professor Olamide B. Hassan, CEO. The man who humiliated her in front of 300 students for correcting his statistics. The same man who tore her project apart like it was garbage. The man she hated the most on earth. He did not look up immediately, but he reeked of arrogance. He flipped through her file slowly, like she was already unworthy of his time. Finally, he looked at her. Adama Yusuf. His voice had not changed. It still had that intimidating undertone. She nodded, meeting his gaze. "Sir." He chuckled. "Imagine that you are here." "I need a job," she said. "And I need loyalty, obedience, respect." He leaned back. "3 things you were not capable of offering as a student." Adama clenched her fist. "I was your best student, sir. Even your colleagues admitted it." "Yes, but brains aren't everything. Attitude matters, humility matters, and ego doesn't." She shot back before she could stop herself. There was a moment of silence. He smiled, a slow, dangerous smile, still as fiery as ever. Do you want to walk out now, or should I make this thing more interesting? I did not come to walk away, she said, voice low. I came to win. There was a bit of silence before he gestured to the chair. Sit, Miss Yusuf, let's play. Every question was loaded, every response a challenge. He asked about ethics, politics, and leadership, but his eyes stayed on her like he was searching for weakness. She responded with wit, strategy, and restraint, but underneath, her blood boiled. At some point, he asked, if your manager is wrong, would you challenge him publicly or privately? She knew it was a trap, so she smiled. I'd correct him privately, but if he insists on being wrong in public, I will save him from embarrassing himself. He blinked. A flicker of something unreadable passed through his expression. Thank you, he said flatly. We will get back to you. 2 days later, she got a message that read, Congratulations, Miss Adama Yusuf. You've been selected as a junior strategist at Ola's group. Report Monday morning. She stared at her phone, heart thumping. She had the job. She was in. But she knew deep down she wasn't going to go without a fight. Not when the devil wore a tailored suit and still called the shots. Adama arrived early, dressed in sharp red blazer. The office was sleek, the air cold, and the employees moved like gears in a machine. She was assigned to the strategy unit on the same floor as him. The first meeting was brutal. Olamide did not speak to her directly, but made sharp comments that clearly targeted her. When she presented an idea, he disregarded it. Next time, try not to confuse confidence with competence, he said after one of her presentations. She burned inside, but she smiled. Noted, sir. She worked late, harder than everyone. She started winning allies, those who admired her gifts. But Olamide, he watched, waited as if daring her to sleep. And she was slowly unraveling. One night, she stayed back to fix a report he'd torn apart. It was past 9 p.m. Most had gone home. She was printing the document when she heard footsteps behind her. You missed a comma on page 7, his voice again. She did not turn, then corrected. You are the god here, aren't you? He walked closer. I never liked you, Adama. She finally turned. The feelings are mutual. But you are smart, he added. That's what makes it worse. There was a purse, tense electric purse. You hate me that much? She asked. He looked at her, his eyes dark. Hate is too mild. She stepped forward. Then, why hire me? He smirked. Because I'd rather watch you fall from up close. She smiled back, cold and bold, then prepared to be disappointed. I don't fail. I win. Adama sat before him, refusing to look away, her spine straight as a rod. Olamide leaned back slowly, folding his arms. I should throw you out, he said coldly. Then do it, she replied. But you and I both know you won't. I'm overqualified, and your company is desperate for fresh minds. So unless your ego is bigger than your desire to see this company thrive, you will give me the job. He laughed, but it wasn't from amusement. You are still the same arrogant little girl as before. And you are still the same bitter man hiding behind power, she shot back. He became silent and they left the office that night, going separate ways. Later that week, Adama's first week was held in tailored suit. Olamide personally assigned her to his direct supervision. The rest of the office buzzed with gossip. The new hire and the COE clearly had history. She must have really messed him up in school, someone whispered. I heard she was the one who made him lose his job after his wife died. None of it was true. But Adama did not bother correcting anyone. She had her eyes on the long game. One evening, while working late again, she found herself alone in the office. Olamide entered, tie loosened, face unreadable. You are still here? She did not look up. You gave me a 10 p.m. deadline. He walked closer. You were always good at defense, but you are not in school anymore, Adama. I can fire you. And you'd lose your best analyst. She smirked. Arrogance suits you more than humility ever did. She finally looked up, her gaze like a flame, and bitterness suits you more than kindness will ever do. Something flickered between them. Hate, or was it something else tangled beneath? At the company's annual fundraising gala, Adama showed up in a stunning midnight blue gown that hugged her curves like it had been made for her. She saw Olamide's eyes darken the moment he spotted her. You clean up so well, he said as he approached with a drink in hand. She smiled, taking the glass. Even your compliments sound like threats, only to those who deserve them. The night danced on, business tycoons, board members, government officials, but their attention remained the loudest note in the room. At one point, they ended up standing too close during a toast. He leaned down. You are trying to drive me mad, aren't you? She sipped her wine unbothered. If I am, I'm succeeding. It had been 3 months since Adama joined Olamide's company, and the office felt like a pressure cooker. Their war had no clear routines, just strategic jabs, burning looks, and small victories. Olamide still made her life difficult, but Adama had adapted. She was faster, smarter, untouchable, and that only seemed to irritate him more. But tonight something cracked. They were both stuck in the office again, working late on a high-stakes pitch for a government project. The rest of the team had gone home. The rain outside tapped violently against the glass like nature was echoing the storm between them. Adama paced the conference room, frustration simmering. You can't change the entire structure of the proposal an hour before the meeting. Olamide leaned against the table, arms folded. It was weak. It was solid. It was basic. God, you are impossible. And you are still as irritating as ever. She turned sharply. Why do you hate me so much, Prof? The word Prof was laced with venom. He stared at her, silent. Adama pressed. You think I don't see it? The disdain in your eyes, the way you find excuses to discredit everything I do. You've been punishing me since I stepped into this building. Why? He stepped closer, too close. Because you remind me of who I used to be, he said quietly. Adama blinked. And because when I look at you, he continued, voice barely above a whisper, I see everything I lost. Their eyes locked. Then she laughed bitterly. So this is about you. He moved even closer. Isn't it always? Their lips were inches apart. The silence buzzed with static. He reached for her, but stopped himself. No, he muttered, stepping back. That would be a mistake. Adama turned away, masking the heat rising to her cheek. Don't flatter yourself. He chuckled darkly. Oh, I don't need to. You're already thinking about it. He hated the way he was right. The next morning, Adama arrived to find her same circulating the office again. Someone had leaked old university footage, a student protest led by Adama, where she'd called out corrupt lecturers, and in the background, a young Olamide storming away in shame. She barged into his office, fire in her eyes. You think this is a game? He barely looked up. I did not leak it, but you are enjoying it, he smirked. You are not so invincible now, are you? She slammed her hands on his desk. You know what? Maybe I did hurt your fragile ego in school. Maybe I did challenge your authority, but you are one who took my internship away from me. You blocked my first job offer. And for what? Pride? His jaw clenched. You don't know anything about what I lost. Oh, enlighten me. He was silent for a bit, then said, my wife died. Adama swallowed hard. I did not know. You never cared to. She looked away. I was a student fighting for my right. You were a storm I wasn't ready for. They stood in the silence of truth. No more walls, just jagged edges. That evening, Olamide found her in the parking lot, sitting close to a car, staring out at the city lights. He knocked on the window. She did not flinch. You okay? He asked. She nodded slowly. I did not mean to hurt you back then. He got inside beside her, the tension between them suddenly softer. I know, he said, but we can't go back. No, she agreed, but maybe we don't have to keep tearing each other apart either. He turned to her. So what? Friends? She smirked. Let's not lie to ourselves. Then he leaned in, not for a kiss, but for closeness. Foreheads touched, breath mingled. Hate had morphed into something else, something dangerous. The office air was electric, like something was about to erupt. Everyone felt it. Whispers floated, tension simmered. But the storm brewing wasn't from the economy, nor the boardroom scandal. It was Adama and Olamide, two souls circling each other with flint and steel. They had shared something unspoken in that car, something dangerously close to desire. But they both walked away, burned, breathless, and unsure of what it meant. Now everything was cracking. It began with a presentation. Adama was leading a pitch to a major international firm. The conference room was filled with executives. Olamide sat at the head, stone-faced as ever. Adama stood tall in a fitted navy blue dress, confidence radiating from her, until one of the foreign partners interrupted. This strategy looks familiar. Was this adapted from the ASAN report from 3 years ago? Adama blinked. No, this is original work. Very analysis was independently developed. The man frowned. We worked with Professor Olamide on ASAN. This format is really identical. Moray'z. I shifted. Adama turned to Olamide confused. You told me this approach was new. He said nothing. The silence was deafening. Her voice dropped. You used me. Still, no reply. The executive excused themselves. The pitch was over. Adama followed Olamide into his office and slammed the door. You stole my work. You know this would backfire. He did not meet her eyes. I did not think it would. You used me to fail, Olamide, again, just like the internship, like the job. Finally, he snapped. You came into my company and acted like you owned the space. I earned every step, Olamide. You remind me of who I failed to become, Adama. You haunt me. She stared at him, breathless, heartbroken. And you, he whispered, you made me feel things I buried a long time ago. That night, Adama did not go home. She sat on the rooftop of the office building. Her legs curled under her, tears silently trailing down her cheeks. She heard footsteps behind her. Olamide. I'm sorry, he said. You were right. I used to. Not just for revenge, but to feel alive again. She turned, eyes wet. You don't get to break me and then ask for peace. I don't want peace, he murmured. I want truth. He stepped closer. You were the only student who ever truly challenged me, and I hated it. But I also admired it. She swallowed hard. I hated you too. But now, I don't know what this is anymore. Their hands brushed. I don't either, he said. But I know I don't want to keep pretending. Then, he finally kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was fire, rage, grief, and longing all at once. Years of bitterness collapsed into one desperate moment of connection. When they pulled apart, breathless, she said, we are still a disaster. He smiled, a beautiful one. Adama stood before a crowd, her voice steady, eyes bright. We built this new consultancy to be different, honest, sharp, and built by people who have fought and grown through fire. Olamide stood at the back watching her. He wasn't her boss anymore. They were partners, now equal minds, equal power. A dynamic filled with tension, laughter, and the occasional late-night argument, but laced with lots of respect. And something else. Love, maybe. Or something close. As the crowd dispersed, he joined her on stage. You still terrify me, he whispered. And you still drive me mad, she replied. They walked off the stage together. Two bitter rivals, burned by the past, now stepping boldly into the future together. If you like the story, kindly comment, and most